There's mass sick leave at the IIT Express. Thousands of people are stranded at the airports. Are there too many staff-related disruptions at the Tata-owned airlines like the one at Vistara? Or is it that the unionized labor in the country is writing its own obituary? Just take a look at that news that IIT students, the best placed to tap the labor market, are finding it difficult to get placements this year. As a maverick observer of the Indian economy, I find it great to share these insights with you. But it is great that if every week when we put up the new episodes, you get the information that they are up, and the best way to do it is to press the bell icon next to the channel. It'll give you a pop-up that a new episode is up. Now let's move on to On Point. What is happening in the labor market? Our topic this time on Point. Employment is of course a real issue, and it becomes particularly more so during the election season like this one. But before you get the idea that employees, especially the organized labor, are bargaining hard at an opportune time, let's get some data in. The data from the Ministry of Labor and Employment shows that in the past 10 years, the percentage has come down by 89.32%. What does it say? Industrial disputes have dropped 89.3% to 34 in 2022 compared to 318 a decade ago. For instance, in 2011, there were a total of 370 strikes and lockouts. Remember, that was in 1 year. Those numbers have dropped to below 100 in the last 5 years each year. So, it is not as if the workers are bargaining, striking hard. No. In fact, as a Bengali, I can tell you that our times in the 80s, 90s, 2000, we used to see these repeated stories, repeated demonstrations of mass hartals, strikes, especially not just in the hotbed West Bengal, but in many other states, where there would be this series of demonstrations on practically any possible issue. And it was such a big thing that there were repeated calls from the different industry chambers that unless this proclivity of Indian labor to go on strike at any conceivable reason, unless that is stopped, we cannot compete with our peers in the Asian market. So that was a very strident period, but that period has changed, as the data shows. In fact, labor now adapts to the new economy very fast. Look at what's happening with the gig economy. This data, it sometimes shows that there are strikes, but overall, there is a huge difference, and labor today is actually competing very well to keep up pace with the demands of the new economy. So why are companies not hiring when labor is cooperative? The devil, you would say, is artificial intelligence. No, sir. I would argue that the devil is in the lack of skills, and that is where the challenge is coming up. What is this problem? Just look at this. India plans to add about 100 gigawatt of nuclear power till the year 2047. Right now we have about 8 gigawatt of nuclear power. So that means a huge number of nuclear plants would come up. In fact, as NPCIL data shows that every year they are planning to add about 700 megawatt equivalent of nuclear plant, and there is one nuclear plant every year for the foreseeable future. Those plants need nuclear engineers. And do you know how many institutions in India offer nuclear engineering? Very few. Just look at this data. There are very few IITs which offer nuclear engineering. Talking about the rest of the institutions, they don't even offer. That is where the skill gap is coming. So just as IITs are not producing the right type of people. At the other end, there is a lack of skill in the people coming in from the farms, coming into the mass manufacturing that is required. There is a lack of skill training there, and that is the challenge. So as industry has updated its requirements, at both ends we see a shortage of skills from the IITs and from the first stage skill training. For instance, what's happening with apprenticeship training? It's not really happening. Apprenticeship training in India has been done under the Apprenticeship Act of 1960s. But you know what the problem with this act is? This act says that if a company signs up to take on apprentice and doesn't keep up those apprentices or doesn't have adequate number of apprentices, there will be fines. Look at this report. What a heavy-handed way to go about trying to raise the number of people employed in the companies. So what's happening? If the company does not keep apprentices, if the company does not take in the supposedly super trained IIT boys, girls, then what happens is that the company moves in for automation. That is a challenge that's coming along in India. Let me give an example. A few years ago, the Delhi metro drivers went on a strike. And frankly speaking, if you look at the demands that they had, those were extremely soft demands, but they still decided to go on a strike. And that would have brought the Delhi's metro to a crippling halt. So what did the Delhi Metro Corporation do? And not just Delhi Metro Corporation, all other metro corporations, they are moving towards driverless trains. Imagine in India, driverless trains. But that's happening. This is not AI. This is simply a question of supply and demand in the market, which is creating this employment challenge. And this is the problem that we need to sort through. Why is it that, coming back to the Air India Express people, they can afford to do it because they know that the supply of those people, even of cabin crew, is short compared to what the market needs. They are going on strike. The IIT boys and girls can't go on strike because what they have, the market doesn't need. It's a peculiar situation, but as I said, it has got something which needs us to look at very carefully. The good news is that apprenticeship training in India has actually started to ramp up very fast. I think that's one of the best things that's happening in India. We need more apprentices. We don't need engineers of the sort who can't be employed. We don't need people who have skills which are not useful. We need to put in largest number of boys and girls into apprenticeship training. That means basically being in industry, working where there's needed, in the way they're needed. That is what will solve the employment problem. And that, the good thing to end on is that those numbers have started to pick up. And that's all from this edition of One Point. For a detailed description of what we discussed here, please visit my Substack. The link is in the description below. Thank you.